Greetings, YouTube. The Doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons and Dragons. And we are going to do another set in our series looking at some of the original Dungeons and Dragons TSR or Advanced Dungeons and Dragons modules, is what they were called in the past, adventures. The second adventure that was ever published by TSR for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So this is when Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, when the Dungeons and Dragons turned into Advanced Dungeons and Dragons around 1977. And they started publishing a series in 1978. We already went over the first of these series, which was G1, The Steadying of the Hill Giant Chief. Now our players have gone from the steading, which is the fort that the Hill Giant Chief and the Hill Giants are using as their base of operations to raid the surrounding areas of humans. And whilst the players were in there, they came upon other giants that were not Hill Giants. So they did come upon some Frost Giants, some Fire Giants, some Stone Giants, some Cloud Giants. So there are other giants in there. The players overall, the kind of umbrella adventure, the umbrella objective for the players was to figure out the sinister mastermind behind these attacks from the giants. And so that's the overall umbrella, but the initial objective was to go and defeat the Hill Giants, to find out what information they could about this overall mastermind, and then to see where that led them. Well, at the end of that adventure, they found a magic item, which was a big chain that allows them to teleport to the Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl, which is G2. And all of the same kind of umbrella objectives exist for the players. They come to the Glacial Rift, which is somewhere in the mountains of a giant glacier, and they are to confront and defeat all the Frost Giants and the Frost Giant Jarl, who is their leader, but ultimately to find out about who this ultimate mastermind, this manipulating mastermind in the background is. So again, Dungeon Module G2, The Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl by Gary Gygax, and it's for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, can be played alone, or as the second of a three-part expedition, which employs the steadying of the Hill Giant Chief and the Hall of the Fire Giant King, published in 1978 from TSR Games in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and it is an official D&D tournament module used at Origins in 1978. Okay, so we get our background here, so I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so the font is a little bit bigger here. And some things that I want to highlight from the background here. Again, they give you kind of the same summary that I had from the steadying of the Hill Giant Chief. It's a band of Frost Giants has been raiding with the other giants, and the party is supposed to destroy them, but to see who is controlling, because there's a rumor that they're being controlled. So we find out here that amid the tallest mountain peaks is the stronghold of Grugner, Lord of the Frost Giants. So we got the name of the Hill Giant Chief, and now we've got the name of the Frost Giant Jarl, or the Lord of the Frost Giants. So his name is Grugnar, and he is the Jarl, or Lord of the Frost Giants. Again, you're supposed to stop the Frost Giants, and you're supposed to find out the source behind the alliance between the Hill, Stone, Frost, and other giants, and then you're supposed to deliver that information to the sponsoring noble that is sponsoring you to do this. So any such information gained is to be delivered by the fastest means to the nobles sponsoring the expedition, while the party is to follow up clues in order to prosecute offenders. So there you go. Okay. Any treasure taken is to be kept by the party. This is their reward for the perils they must face. And there's some pretty good treasure in here. We're going to go over most of it. So in italics here, Gary Gygax kind of gave the basis for the adventure as administratively, like what kinds of characters, how big a party, what levels, that kind of thing. So the big one here is the optimum mix for a group is 9 characters of various classes with an average experience level of at least 9th level, and each should have 2 or 3 magic items which are useful against giants. Now, that's not always the case, but so we saw this in the steadying of the Hill Giant Chief as well. It's a certain number of PCs. 9 PCs is a lot. They played with big tables back then. And 9 PCs at 9th level with 2 to 3 magic items each. So, again, it is assumed that the party has either followed a map obtained at the steading or used the magical chain found there to arrive in the neighborhood of the Glacial Rift. The Frost Giants apparently live in a neighborhood. And with this, they find a cave. Again, they discover a hidden cave in which they can safely hide themselves, their mounts, equipment, and even treasure if they take minimum precautions with respects to keeping their hiding place secret. That is, do not lead pursuers to the spot, make undue noise there, etc. So they get a forward operating base. This is very similar to the Hill Giant, where they found a cave and they were able to go and assault the steading, come back to the cave. Again, this is the same thing. This is a rift, so it's like a big chasm. We're going to look at that in the maps, and they can go to the rift, do some things, and come back to this forward operating base they have here. So they talk a little bit about the rift. I have a map. So here's the map of the rift itself. This arrow right here displays 2 paths that come in, one on the west side, one on the east side, that come into the rift. The rift is essentially a lip around this big chasm here, and then there are caves that shoot off from those kind of plateaus above this. Now, at the back of the module here, so let's go over here, and we'll change. So at the very back is a picture of the rift itself. Here is the path coming in, which splits off into a path that goes this way and a path that goes this way. So one to the left, one to the right. And then there's the little end right here, and the bottom of the rift can't be seen in this picture, but it's there. It is definitely there. And so we're still here with the background part. And they talk about some of the particulars of the rift. So there are 2 icy ledges along either face of the rift. We pointed those out. And both slope slightly downward with occasional high steps, which combine to make the paths progress from 250 feet above the bottom of the rift to about 150 feet at the far south end. So if we look at that map again, this part up here and over here is 250 feet at the top, and at the bottom it is 150 feet. I'm trying to find my cursor here. There we are. And so you can see that down at the bottom and then down at the top. Okay, so let's go ahead and take that off. And then the dark outline is the rift, and the openings along it are the entrances to the caves and tunnel faces. Caves are typically for between 25 and 45 feet high. Tunnels and passages are 20, 30 feet high. Obviously, they have to be that big because these are giants. And then there is some weather conditions in the rift. So it is very windy and snowy, which limits visibility. And it's also very slick. The bottom of the rift is also more or less difficult terrain. So they talk about falling mechanics if somebody's trying to climb down the edge of the rift. The whole place is windy and very cold. Visibility at the top of the rift is 150 feet. The wind at the bottom of the rift is worse still, and visibility is only 30 feet at the bottom of the rift. And then the floor of the rift is a maze of snow and ice hillocks and mounds with peaks of ice and rock thrusting up. So it's going to be hard. Here's a picture of a guy going down into the rift, and you can see the wind going through here. So movement through the Howling Maze is reduced by 50%. That would be, in a 5e sense, that would be difficult terrain. And then due to wind force and eddy currents, levitation or flying will cause movement in a random direction. The map the party has shows only the entrance to the rift. That's the north part. They have no idea as to which path they should take. So when you show the map, you shouldn't show the whole thing, and you definitely shouldn't show like the numbers on there or anything like that. So they've got some notes for the Dungeon Master about monsters and what the players should see, what they should do if they go rest, in between forays, things like that. And again, this is a repeat of the last one. If time permits, the Giants will organize traps, ambushes, etc., etc. If you plan to continue this campaign by using the other modules in the series, be certain to keep track of the fate of important giants and their allies, because some of them could get away, like the Jarl or the Jarl's wife, and then they could show up in the next one. Okay, and then we go into the kind of a description of the upper areas, northern section, caves, caverns, and the rift floor. And about moving boulders, because there's boulders in some of these places. And then there's, of course, the giant bag, the giant's bag, and the contents of the giant's bag, which are given here. They're a little bit different than the hill giant's bags. They're a little bit, they've got a little bit more valuable items in them, but there's cheese, which is very important. Okay, wandering monsters, 1 in 12 each turn, which is every 10 minutes. And it's 2 to 5 Yeti, 1 to 3 Fire Giants, 4 to 16 Ogres, 2 to 8 Winter Wolves, and it's a 1 in 12 chance. And then they start going into the map. So we are going to start at Area 1, and then we're going to work our way down to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth. And it kind of follows this swath down this way, and then it goes back up to the top, and it kind of goes down this way. So we start with Area 1, and I'm just going to pick out some salient points here. So the caves themselves are mostly composed of ice. There is some light in the caves, and fire will cause flooring to become slippery, and it will create a fog or mist. And that is here. So the northern section of the caves and caverns basically formed from ice with a few areas of rock here and there. In these areas, a faint greenish light will make torches or similar lights unnecessary. Fireballs or other similar effects used in such areas will make the footing within the area of effect very slippery. So you basically flash melt the ice, and then it flash freezes in a very smooth sheet of ice. And then from 2 to 5 turns after such magical fire is used, the area will also be filled with thick fog, which will reduce visibility to 5 feet. So players will have to be very careful when using destructive magics here. I would also add, I've run this before, and I think I have modified this a bit so that if other destructive magics are used, there's chances of cave-ins. All right, so we've got guards in Cave 1, 4 Frost Giants. That's big. That's really not great. 3 Frost Giants in Room 2 with some treasure. And then we've got this empty ice cave in cave number 3. Oh, we've got to get rid of these maps here. And we can move this map over a little bit. 3, and this cave will collapse if there's any loud noise made here, dealing some damage. In cave number 5, we've got some Giants have frozen corpses of mutilated victims, standing them upright in blocks of transparent ice. So you can see in room 5 there's some little kind of squares on the edge of the room. That's where those are supposed to be. And each of the corpses has something valuable. So there is a dwarf with a +1 battle axe. There's an elf with a case at its feet, which has a cold wand. Now, they don't really define what a cold wand is, but it's got 16 charges. There's a human with a jeweled belt that's worth some money. There's another human with a tube that has a scroll. A dwarf with a spilled pouch, which got some gems. A human that is wearing a ring of fire resistance. There is a half-elf that is grasping a sack with a burst seam with silvery coins. And then there's a human with a set of magic armor, which is cursed, armor of vulnerability. And if the players use a fireball, it will destroy everything, because apparently fireball was a very popular spell back then, and that kind of thing did happen. All right, so number 6, we've got some provisions. Number 7, so we're going to move the map over now because we're going to the next page. Number 7, we've got some ogres. And then number 8 through 10. Now, what's interesting about number 8 through 10 is we've got these armbands that some of these guys are wearing. We've got 12 ogres here, ogre mercenaries, and they've got a whole bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of chests that contain stuff. There's a barrel that contains skulls. Hidden under the 10th pile of skins are 2 healing potions and a gold armband with an inset ivory and amber bear. The latter is a pass to the Jarl. So players might be able to get a hold of that and lie their way in. That just, I think that's why Gary Gygax put that in here. And then we've got 9 and 10. Again, we've got this cave guard complex. Giants are always alert. 4 Frost Giants in 9, 4 Frost Giants in 10. Each wears an armband exactly as described in 8. And then they've got bags and things like that. Then we go to cave number 11, which is the Cave of Bones. And there's a bunch of stuff that's disposed in here from the Giants. Not really. There's a lot of odds and ends that Gary loved to put into adventures. In 12, now the thing I found that was interesting in room number 12 is it's their kind of garbage disposal where they have these ice toads, and the ice toads eat whatever they leave in number 11. And they have this naturally shaped piece of reddish purple amethyst, which is worth a lot, which resembles a toad. They have it on a protuberance in the middle of their cave, and it is worshipped by them as a god. I found that kind of strange that these ice toads are worshiping this thing as a god. So does that mean these ice toads are intelligent? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so in number 13, we've got this ice cavern, and it's a home to a band of Yeti who are scouts for the Frost Giants. There's a Yeti leader, and he has a neutral +3 frost longsword with no intelligence. So this is one of the first of these. We're going to move the map over. Now we've got this picture here, and it corresponds to a room that's later on. But the characters will see these giant figures that are carved in the ice. So if we go to the next page, and this is the other half of that, and you'll see the giants are like fighting dragons and things. So we've got 14 is the Misty Cave. And let's see here. And it's towards the south. And it says it is in the north, kind of just north of the rift. And there's hot air here, And there is a crack in the floor here, but it doesn't really say where that crack goes. And then we've got various things. So we've got some snow leopards who happen to be pets of the Yetis. We've got the Barracks Cavern Complex of 16, 17, 18, and 19, which are a lot of frost giants. There, in this complex alone, there are 18 frost giants, which is huge. That's a massive number of frost giants. We've got the frozen storage in 20. In 21, we've got this ice cavern. A rune of warning carved into the ice floor clearly shows that the place is to be shunned. And then only 10 feet beyond the west bend of the cavern, the walls appear to be covered with old, rough ivory. It is full of brown mold. So it's kind of a hazard. 22, we've got more frost giants. One is watching, one's sleeping. 23, more frost giants, so it's another guard cave. And then 24 is a very large visitors cave, and there are hill giants in here. So that's interesting. They're hill giant visitors, and these are waiting summons from the Jarl. The cave has 5 heaps of hides and 5 giant-sized bags. Bag number 4 has a gold inlaid skull with a report from the hill giant chief to the Jarl. It is a pass to the hall of King Snur, the fire giant king. Also, and the biggest hill giant knows that they are bound south to take to the realm of the fire giants after seeing the Jarl, so as to take a message to the fire giant king. But it doesn't say what the message is. Doesn't say what the message is here. It says it's a pass, and they've got this report, but they don't really say what they're talking to the Jarl about and what they're talking to Snur about. So that is something that maybe as a dungeon master you could fill that in. In number 25, which is another visitor's cave, we've got stone giants here. Very large size, have come to pay their respects to the Jarl and see how well the frost giants are doing in their war on humankind. They will report their observations to other stone giants if they get the opportunity. They will fight only if attacked. So stone giants are a little bit neutral. In 26, we've got the location is warmed somewhat by volcanic activity, and there are, let's move this over here, there are 3 fire giant messengers here who have delivered their message and are about to depart for their own land. And then they've got some treasure, but the strongest fire giant here carries a token of the Jarl's fealty to King Snur, which means that Grugner, he bows or bends the knee to King Snur, the fire giant king. So the fire giant king apparently is the king of all of the evil giants, I guess. And it's a solid silver statue of a bear, rampant with topaz eyes and ruby fangs, and it's pretty expensive. And then finally, so we get the Winterwolf pack in 27, which at this point that is not quite in the it's at the bottom of the rift. So now we're in the rift of 27. 28 is a snow-covered dome of ice, and this formation has been caused by a creature which layers inside, which is a Remoraz. So this is the first time we're going to see a Remoraz, and it's moved into the rift, and there's a number of skeletons around its icy den. One of them is a human with a ring of 3 wishes. This was a super powerful item even back in AD&D, and it doesn't exist, as far as I know, in 5th edition, but it definitely would be an artifact level item in 5th edition. I think there's a Ring of Wishes, but it only gives 1 wish. And then there's a +2 Giant Slayer, which no intelligence, it align to suit the party if desired, otherwise it's lawful good. And then if the monster is destroyed by heat, there is a problem here. The ice and the treasure is lost. So there should be a parentheses right here. So the treasures are lost, destroyed, or sunk into the ice and non-recoverable. In 29, which is towards the northern part of the rift, we've got this white pudding. Note that there are 2 of these monsters, one at each place in 29 shown on the map. And this was a newer creature that is a variant of a black pudding. And then finally, we've got the ice-coated sinkhole in number 30 that goes down 100 feet to the second level. And then we've got our picture of our Remoraz here. That's a very classic picture of a Remoraz from a long ago. Okay, now we go down to the second level of the map, and we go to area number 1. And this is kind of a faster level. It's not as heavy populated. There's not as many caves in this one. And again, we've got a wandering monster table. So this area is natural formations with some rough-hewn connecting passages and enlargements made here and there. So this is less ice and more cave. Again, passages are about 25 feet high, while the roofs of smaller caves are 30 to 40 feet high. Larger ones are 45 to 60 feet high. Light in the area comes from torches and cressets, which are actually caged for fire beetles. So this is pretty cool. They introduced this, fire beetles in cages. And then there's watering monsters. So the watering monsters incur 1 in 10 check now. So a 10% chance every 10 minutes. Frost giants, ogres, frost giantesses, and ogre servants, and a frost giant with winter wolves. And these are only if the party is known to be around. So we enter here at number 1, which is the grand entry. And this is pretty much empty, except it's obviously meant to be impressive. There are bas reliefs on the wall, and this is what we saw earlier with the giants hunting dragons and other fearsome creatures. In number 2, we get this vaulted cavern. This is important, and it is closed off by a boulder. There are 2 white dragons in here. So there is a large ancient dragon that rests atop a heap of treasure. And then there is a medium-sized, very old female dragon. Now, this would probably be changed. Not sure that this would be medium-sized for a very old female dragon. And you could change this however you wanted, however you're playing it. Of course, if it were 5th edition, these are going to be very big. But there's plenty of room. I mean, the squares on these maps are 10 feet per square, so there's plenty of room for these. Interestingly, really the only magic items that the dragon has is a +2 dagger and some potions. So there is quite a bit of treasure on there. So we've got 72,000 silver pieces. Gary Gygax loved Electrum pieces. 17,320 Electrum pieces. 2 Electrum pieces were a gold piece. 2,966 platinum pieces. No gold pieces here, but a bunch of like gold scattered art pieces. Number 3 is a storage. Number 4 is a deserted cavern, which a whole host of stuff, and a +1 shield. And we go to the next page. And number 4A is a frost giant skeleton, half buried under stone rubble. And it's basically just a storage place. And then we've got more ice toads. And then we go to cave number 5. And cave number 5 is the actual entrance to the Jarl's complex. So this is off to the west. And it's guarded by 2 large frost giants. And one of them has a horn hung on iron chains from above. The horn requires 1 round to reach it and another round to wind it. So you're going to have to work that out. Number 6, interestingly, number 6 has 4 ogre magi recently arrived from the lord of their kind. So there is an ogre mage lord. Gary Gygax doesn't really go into it very much about who it is, where they are, the particulars of that. But apparently there is a lord who is here to have an audience with the Jarl. And after a special wassail to be held on the morrow, they will depart for home. They don't say where their home is, with a treaty scroll. The scroll is signed, a special mark by the Jarl, and offers the Lord of Ogre Magi 100,000 gold piece value in gems, plus whatever loot his minions garner if they will join the war upon mankind. So there's some active recruitment of the Frost Giants to get other monster races to join their war upon mankind or humankind. Each monster bears a pouch. There's a small iron casket which holds a gift to the Lord of the Ogre Mage, which is a trick box. And it is a box of holding, very similar to a bag of holding, but it requires a particular combination to get into it. And then it contains 2,000 gold pieces and 2 potions. And the leader of this group wears a necklace of fireballs. So remember, if you use a fireball in here, some of the ice that's in here is going to melt. It's going to cause it to be slick, and it's also going to cause fog. So, and he will not hesitate to use it. So that could be a thing that happens. We've got number 7, which is another guest cave. And we've got a cloud giant in here that's visiting. So we got all these different giants here that are visiting. This one has agreed to join the Jarl, to join Grugnar as his chief henchman. It's got some treasure. In number 8, we've got a prison cavern. And there's a storm giantess who is comely to those of her ilk and is strong and fights as if she were a male. And she is chained on the north wall with huge manacles at the wrists and ankles. And then there's a fur rug in the middle, so on and so forth. So upon the table are heaps of food and golden platters in silver bowls and 2 huge flagons of ivory set with gems, set to tantalize her into submitting to the Jarl's will and becoming his layman. So I'm going to guess that maybe like his side piece. So this Durance Vial makes her a friend to any who rescue her, although evil characters will cause this aid to be of brief duration. And Gary loved to use words that he just pulled out of the dictionary. Big thing for him. But so there is this, and it doesn't say where the Storm Giantess came from, what kingdom she belongs to. Are there other Storm Giants? Was she kidnapped? How was she kidnapped? None of those storylines are in there. So that might be something, the players could rescue her, and then that could be a different adventure on getting her back. So we've got number 9 as servants' quarters, and in the servants' quarters are a bunch of ogres. Number 10, we've got the anti-cavern, which is coming into the big hall. And there are 4 giant guards in here. And then we've got the great cavern hall of the Jarl, who's not in here. But we've got these ledges that have frost giants on them with ballista ready to go in A and B. And then 12 is the audience alcove with the throne dais. And again, it's a huge ivory bone throne decorated with skulls, silver, and gems. And there are some seats for the Jarl's lieutenants, but there's no frost giants here. But behind the throne are two frost giants that are on guard. Then we move over to number 14 on the northern part of this complex, which has 3 fire giantesses and ogres roasting a horse over the natural fire pit there and otherwise readying the Jarl's food. Now, my question is, why are the cooks fire giants? I don't know. Is there some deal that that Grugnar made with Snur to have these here? Not sure. And then there's 4 human captives in a cage being saved for a feast, so they're going to eat them. But they are of nobody of import, but the players are going to have to deal with getting them out and getting them out of there. Weapons cave, common quarters, which has a whole bunch of giants in it. We've got the kennel cave, which has got polar bears in here. We've got the caverns of the Carls. So these provide quarters for the frost giant gentry or the frost giant nobles. And these are all right before you get into the final part of the cavern complex in the southeast. So again, these have a lot of fire giants in them. There's 9 males and 11 females with 8 young, and then 3 males, 4 females, and 5 young. And then we've got the Jarl's Anti-Cavern and Trophy Hall, which is in number 20, right before you get into the hall, the quarters of Grugner himself. And it's got all this huge list of different monsters that the Jarl has killed or they've hunted down, and they have mounted their heads on the walls. So there's a cave bear, a Sioux monster, a wyvern, a rack of a giant stag, teeth and claws of an umber hulk, giant scorpion claws, woolly rhino, woolly mammoth, mastodons, and then so on and so forth. There's a heavy crossbow of speed here, also hung on the wall. There is an iron horn of Valhalla here, and then there is a bunch of other stuff. There's a suit of elven plate mail +2 here, and this is a different kind of plate mail. It's a lighter plate mail, and it says, note, if the magic shield, which is right, there's 2 shields, number 2 is +2. If the magic shield is taken down, it releases a spear trap, which fires, hitting on a 5 or better. If the walrus tusks are touched, which are right there, then the She-Do skull will scream, alarm, alarum, 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 robbers. So Gary, I'm sure, spelled it that way on purpose. And finally, we get into the Jarl's private quarters. So he wields a huge shield, which is +1/+4 versus missiles. And he's got an AC of 1. Remember, the lower the armor class, the better the armor class was back in AD&D. And he has a +4 two-handed sword, so he's pretty tough. And he's got a drinking horn, bunch of treasure, and then his lady is there with a cloak of saber-tooth tiger, which is not anything special. It's just there. And he fights, I think here, he fights as a cloud giant and she fights as a fire giant. And that kind of gives you the hierarchy. It goes hill giant, frost giant, fire giant, cloud giant. I think stone giants are right around the same place as frost giants. And then there are 2 huge winter wolves here as well. So this will be a big fight. Bunch of treasure, but interestingly, he's got his stuff. And then there's a bunch of potions. And finally, the little eastern part of the cavern, which is in the very southeast corner that says A, there is a huge bed, a small table, and some chairs and things. And there is pelts and rugs. The lid of a trunk has a secret drawer in it, which contains 6 parchment scrolls. So a cursed scroll, but it doesn't say what the cursed scroll is. A map to the Hall of the Fire Giant King. So this is kind of how players can get there. A protection from magic scroll. A scroll of gibberish with explosive ruins on it. A scroll with 2 spells. 9th level spells of Crystal Brittle, which turn any one metal item touched by the magic user to brittle crystalline substance and energy drain. So, and then at A, behind the wall hangings on the eastern portion of the north wall is a hidden escape tunnel. And within that, there is a bar protruding from the wall about 10 feet above the floor. The bar moves downward and transports whatever or whoever is standing on the floor of the alcove to a spot some 50 feet distant from the entrance to Snur's Hall, the Hall of the Fire Giant King. So this is how you get from here to the Fire Giant King. An apparently empty ledge along the southwest wall is resting place of an iron box, totally invisible and strongly locked. And inside that box are, the box contains poison gas. The players are going to have to deal with that. It doesn't really say what the poison does, but a lot of times these things would just kill you outright. So inside the box are a hammer of thunderbolts, a pearl of wisdom. This is a big item right here, that hammer of thunderbolts. And this is the first place that a hammer of thunderbolts is published. A pearl of wisdom, set of 8 small jars that contain Nolzur's marvelous pigments. They don't really say who Nolzur is. A ring of invisibility and a wand of paralyzation, and this ends the expedition. This ends the expedition to the Glacial Rift of the Jarl. So we've got all of this here. We've got the Jarl, we've got his lady, we've got the 2 huge winter wolves, his treasure, which is quite extensive. There's 36,500 gold pieces, 61,000 gold pieces. These are gems, 15,000 gold piece lots. I think these are 36,500 gold piece gems. It's kind of hard in the way they wrote it and the way they type it. 6, 1,000, 1, 5,000. So quite a few gems. We've got the scrolls with the 2 9th level spells. We've got the kind of big lever that will teleport you to King Snur. And then we've got the magic items at the end with the Hammer of Thunderbolts. So some big magic items in here like the Ring of 3 Wishes and the Hammer of Thunderbolts. Those are big ones. Big, giant, massive things. We've got a +3 Frost Longsword in here as well. A bunch of different scrolls. There is an armor vulnerability. I believe this is the first adventure that has a dragon in it that TSR published. And there is going to be a dragon, I believe, in the next one as well. So, all right. That is the Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl. And that's our review. And that is what I got for everybody. And I hope everybody enjoyed. And I will catch everybody later.